What's up, everybody? I'm Matt Brody, and this is Simply Must Go. And it's been a hot minute since I got to make a video, particularly about Project Emo here. So if you're not familiar with this channel, I do a lot of Jeep stuff, a lot of Jeep events, a lot of overlanding, and I also play in a couple of different YJs. And today we're working on Project Emo, which is my 1993 Jeep Wrangler YJ. And there's been a couple of projects with it that have kept it from being finished. And well, today I'm finally going to tackle all those projects. So today I'm going to install this Continental Bluetooth radio that I absolutely love. I'm also going to install this Smittybilt glove box, and we're going to install a new antenna and antenna mount on Project Emo, and I'll get into the reasons why in just a second. But suffice it to say, this project, like every good YJ project, did not go as planned. Murphy's Law was in full force on this project. It seemed like around every corner I was running into problems, issues, mistakes, all kinds of stuff. So this video is really a true representation of the frustration and the things I have to deal with, or you might have to deal with when you're working on an older vehicle like this, because nothing seems to go quite as smoothly. But I do have some gems in here that you'll want to pay attention to, because we got a lot done and I'm really excited about it. And at the end, Project Emo is going to be done with one major mechanical issue left to deal with, but that's being dealt with soon too. So anyway, let's get into this project. When I first got Emo, the plan was to do a lot of the simple fixes myself, and so I took apart a lot of the dash and the wiring inside the dash, and I'm putting in a new glove box, and I'm redoing different things and taking out the seats and working on the floors a little bit. So anyway, if you're interested in any of those past videos, there'll be a link to that stuff up here. So one of the things that I wanted to do with Emo was to replace the antenna, because it was big, it was long, it's kind of whipping around a lot, and it would smack into the side mirrors. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get something smaller, a little bit more like a stubby antenna. And so what happened was I went to take this antenna off of this mount, and it wouldn't come off no matter what I did. And I was like, all right, well, as any good Jeep project goes, the little projects turn into big projects. And so what happened was when I took this off, I realized two things. One is, this isn't coming off. It's either completely rusted in to the metal that's inside of here, or it was never designed to come out in the first place. That was issue number one. So I bought a new mount for the antenna, and I said, okay, easy fix. Then bought a YJ mount antenna, like the standard stock one, and I went to put it on, and the holes don't line up. There are not holes. The factory antenna mount is more of a triangle, and as you can see, this is sort of a weird ovally shaped one. So it's like, that's weird. The hole for this part doesn't line up with the hole for the factory. You'd have to drill new holes, and it wouldn't line up, and it was going to be this really big pain in the butt project where I was probably going to have to put in like body filler and stuff just to make this work, because I was going to have to drop the whole thing down a little bit. And so that was going to turn into a big project. And so as I started doing research, like, well, maybe I can just get another one of these mounts. And so I started looking, and finally what I've discovered is that this mount here is off of a CJ7, which brings up a whole list of questions about why there's a CJ7 antenna that doesn't have the hole mounts for where the factory YJ was. So that kind of leads me to believe at some point that panel was damaged and replaced, and in replacing it, instead of going and getting a new stock factory antenna mount, they went to Walmart, which carried the CJ7 mounts, and they just put that on. So I think that's what this came from. This sort of Jeep CJ7 mount looked like it originally came from Walmart. And so I think that's what happened. There's some damage there. They put on a new panel, and instead of putting on the correct factory one, they drilled new incorrect holes in a new body panel and mounted a CJ7 antenna. So after discovering that, I bought a new CJ7 antenna mount that I will mount a stubby antenna to, and then we're going to install that. Now you're going to ask yourself, that's still a fairly easy fix. Why haven't you done it yet? Well, the simple answer to that is, when I took this off, because this was all old and rusty, and the seam, the rubber gasket that's kind of behind here, it was pretty bad. So behind this was a bunch of rust, and I didn't want to put everything back on top of that rust without fixing that rust. And so fixing that rust has been the thing that's been preventing me from sort of moving forward. And I can't put the glove box in until I get this installed, and then I can't put the new radio in until I have the glove box in. So it's sort of this domino effect of things I haven't been able to do that today we're finally going to start doing. I'm going to get off my lazy butt and let's knock this out. So what I'm going to do to fix the rust is I'm going to use a product called Pour 15. I've got another video I'll link here where I did a lot of the front bumper area in that to protect it from some rust that was forming. So it worked really well. It's a fairly easy and not time-consuming process. So I'm going to use the Pour 15 product just on that small little area so I don't have to grind a lot of things out. I'm just going to get that kind of patched up, and then we'll put the new one on top, and hopefully you won't even see it, but it will be protected from further rust. Then I can start putting in all the other things we've got planned. So here goes. Oh, before I get started, since nobody's asked yet, but somebody will, the cover that I have on my YJ is from a company called Great Tops. It's a JeepJacket, and it's probably the best cover for your Jeep for when you're running no doors, no tops, that kind of stuff. I bought this. They're not a sponsor or anything like that, but they are local. The guy that owns it is a friend of mine, and these are made in the USA. They're made right here in Lexington, South Carolina, but they are form-fitted to fit your exact Jeep model. So they have CJ7, YJ, TJ, LJ, JK, JU, 2-door, 4-door. They also have versions so that if you have a light bar across the top, they've got a version of that that fits your light bar, so it's all form-fitted. And the idea is that they're a really easy cover to throw on when you're running no doors, no tops, and it's sort of that summertime shower season where you're, nice most of the day, and then, you park somewhere and rain gets all over you. So this is a great cover. It's fully waterproof. It works. I've had to park Emo out in the driveway for a while. We had a pipe burst in our bedroom, so we've had to move a lot of our bedroom stuff into the garage for storage while that's getting fixed. So Emo's been out here, which meant I needed to get some kind of cover to protect it. And this has been absolutely awesome. So I'll leave a link down in the description below for Jeep jackets made by Great Tops. Again, I bought this. They're not a sponsor, but it's been awesome, and I wanted to tell you about it. Really easy, really nice. Not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's definitely better than any of the not American-made crap that you'll find. All right, step one is to apply the Metal Prep degreaser. So instead of using a spray bottle this time like I did last time, I'm just using the little foam brushes here, and I'm going to do the inside and outside. That's why I had to have the other stuff kind of removed so I could get to it. But we're just going to try to keep things damp for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then we'll put on the cleaner. While I'm working on the antenna, what I'm also going to do is start this project down here, which is trying to get the bed lining off of this little section here where somebody screwed in the grounds to an amplifier to the bed of the Jeep and then covered it all up with bed liner. And I found a little trick that we're going to test out today, but I was told, or I saw a trick rather, that citrus strip, if you pour that on, cover it up, leave it for about 24 hours, it'll wipe away the bed liner, and then we can get that out, clean it up, and then fix that. So while that's going on, we're going to start this process, let it sit for like 24 hours. By the end of the video, we'll find out if this actually worked. All right, it's been about 15 minutes, so I'm just going to kind of wipe that up a little bit and then spray it with water, because that's what they say to do. All right, now it's time for the metal prep, which is basically the same process. We're just going to kind of dab it on with the foam brush here, keeping it wet for about 15 minutes. Now, obviously, the ideal solution would be to have this spot professionally fixed and then painted and all that kind of stuff, but then you get into a lot of having to blend and paint a lot of other things, and This is sort of the short-term Band-Aid solution so things don't get worse, and possibly in the future, you know, we might do a whole paint job or something like that, and then fix that at that point. But this is the fix for now. This is the garage fix. This is my fix. So I get it. There's better ways to do this than what I'm doing, but that's not what I'm doing today. So again, the goal with this is just about prevention. So I'm using a very small brush. I'm trying to go very gently into this area so that I'm not painting much over actual paint. Just enough to get in here so that when the new rubber seal gets on top, there's no bare metal for new rust to get on. That's the goal. Just to try to do as much preventative work as we possibly can. Let that dry a little bit. I'm gonna do the back side. All right, I'm gonna let that dry for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna put another coat on, and then I'm gonna let that dry. And once everything's nice and dry, I should be ready to antenna-size Project Emo. Antenna-size? I don't know. I'm gonna put an antenna on this thing, and then I'm gonna put a radio in. All right, this should be the last coat of paint. Again, this is just the paint that comes with the Pour 15. Gotta make sure we don't. I think that's gonna do it. Let it dry. All right, all in all, I think it looks pretty good. Way better than that other antenna looked. And as you can see, it's pretty hidden, all that stuff. There was a little bit of rust and bubble paint that came out the top of that from before. So if you look really close, you can see a little bit of area that's kind of messed up, but other than that, it looks pretty hidden and pretty good. So from a distance, I don't think you'd ever notice. Plus, you know, it's a trail rig, it's a YJ. If it was perfect, well, it wouldn't be a YJ. Well, this is typical. This is typical of every project I've worked on and or working on a YJ. So, I've gone to plug in the radio cord, right? This is the cable that goes from the antenna into the back of the radio. And you'll see it kind of scoots on the back there and then screws in. There is not enough room between the blower motor, whatever this is here. So there's not enough room to get in there and plug this in the way it is. So now I'm going to have to take this off where it's really loose, slide it out so that I have enough room, put it on, and then tighten the screws behind it. That's going to be fun. At least it's doable, I hope, but I still got to beat this rain. The goal is to kind of get everything loose enough that I can kind of slide it back out a little bit and then get it on there. And that is going to be easier said than done. Like if you feel around back here, it's like there's enough room, but then once you try to get your hand in there with this and get it angled, it's like my hand is too big and it keeps getting caught on everything it shouldn't get caught on. Don't drop it. At least I'm not locked up in the garage trying to... Oh, do I finally have an angle? Hang on. Oh, come on. How do I get you off of this stupid... How do I get you behind that? Oh, you're right there. If I had an eighth of an inch, I feel like I could make this work. and you have to do it blind. So you're trying to feel your way through things, but the second you move your hand, it just sucks.
One eternity later.
I don't know how. Somehow, by some miracle, I actually got it in there. But I can't get I gotta get the, like the screw to grab on the back, but it's pressed in. I just gotta figure out how to press it in some more. Oh, it's the little wins. It is the little wins in life, for sure. I got it. All right, I gotta tighten down everything again. Man, that was such a pain in the butt. But it's in there now, so I guess that's the good thing, and it's firmly in there, I think, so tighten it up as much as I can. All right, I don't know what to tell you. Every time I work on this thing, it becomes much more of a hassle than it's supposed to be, I think. So it started raining on me a little bit, so I threw the JeepJacket back on, and I decided to come into the garage and start working on some of the prep work for the radio. And so what first thing you got to do with the radio is take it out. You got to put the YJ bracket on it, so went ahead and did that. This radio is a Continental TR7412UB-OR. I will link to this down in the description below. Bought this off of Amazon. It's actually the exact same radio that I bought and put into Sue, my 92 Jeep Wrangler YJ, which is the Jurassic Park replica. The reason I like this radio a lot is because it's very subtle. It doesn't have a lot of the crazy look. It feels more like an old school radio, and it just has the nice sort of orange lighting. So it fits the aesthetic of the rest of the interior of the Jeep with the orange lights in the dash and stuff like that. None of these crazy, blue changing LED lights that you see in some of these newer systems that I absolutely hate. So very simple radio. Now, the thing with these is you've got to also buy an adapter that goes from the factory wiring harness into this. And this is where this project becomes a pain in the butt. The adapter that I got is specific for a YJ. The issue is that, well, it doesn't actually line up in terms of the wires. The YJ's older models versus newer models, they had a different wiring scheme. And so the 93 is a different wiring scheme than like an 88, for example. And with that, even with that, it doesn't actually matter. The wiring that came with this harness adapter was just wrong. And so as I'm trying to figure out where wires are going and things like that, I was looking at the factory wiring harness schematics, and so I had to sort of rewire the factory wiring harness to put the right wires in the right places. The colors are also different, so not only am I figuring out which wires are supposed to go where, I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, on the Jeep it's a brown wire, and here it's going to be a gray wire. And so just kind of trying to match that stuff up, and then also make sure it matches up with the wiring for the radio. And so long story short is I spent about an hour, and I was talking with my brother trying to get all the different issues with that figured out, because this is not my my wheelhouse necessarily. But I've gotten all that taken care of. So now my wiring harness matches the factory wiring harness and will line up correctly with the radio wiring. And here's a tip that I want to give you that I learned from my brother when we were installing all this stuff on Sue, my 92 YJ. I will leave this whole video up here when we fixed all this wiring issues. It's a really good video. It's where I learned what I'm doing today. So I've got my wiring harness adapter, and I've got the wiring that goes into the back of the radio. There's actually two of these. But anyway, normally what you would do is you'd say, okay, here's the purple and black wire, and here's the purple and black wire, and maybe use like a butt connector, right, to stick them together this way, right? That's what most people do, but what I learned from Beav is to actually do it this way, where you put both wires in together in the butt connector and leave an opening. And that opening is really nice because it gives you the ability to plug other stuff into it if you need it, or check it with a, any kind of, you're trying to check for grounds, or you're check for power or something, like you could put a tester in there or something like that. But in doing this, one, it keeps the wiring nicer, so when it's all said and done, the wiring is going to end up, looking a lot more clean than it would if you just sort of had this huge rat's nest that you had to do. But also, I've discovered some wiring issues with the radio in the YJ, and this setup will actually make fixing those problems very, very easy. So butt connectors this way will save you a little bit of time and hassle later on. So I'm going to finish wiring this up, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Well, good morrow to you. All right, next day. Let me kind of show you what I'm dealing with when it comes to the stereo wiring that's here in the YJ. And you'll understand why I've got some figuring out to do, because it wouldn't be a YJ project without weird wiring issues. So what we're looking at here is that the previous owner put in new speakers, which is great, but they didn't use the factory wiring harness. They wired the speaker directly into this aftermarket wiring harness for the radio that was in here. So the front speakers, and these are the soundbar speakers, are now wired directly into this basically adapter, not into the factory speaker wiring harness. So I'm going to have to cut both the left and the right and the speaker wires out of this wiring harness and tap them into the wiring harness now for the new speaker, which is one of the reasons that doing it this way is really going to be beneficial. It's going to make it a lot easier. Ideally, I'd go all the way back and do it into the factory wiring harness, but I have a feeling that because of this issue, they didn't use it because they couldn't get the speakers to use the factory wiring harness here, so they did this. And instead of trying to rework all the wiring, I'm just going to tap in that way and do it with these. And that should make my life easy. It's not the ideal way. I know that, the ideal way would be to go back to factory, but this is going to work. And so, for the sake of time, I'm going to do that. I have to do all of the wiring now. I don't have to. I'm going to prefer to do the wiring and test it while the glove box is still out. Once I know it works, I'll disconnect the radio and then get the new glove box put in, because you have to get back here for the glove box and the radio blocks that. So you really can't get the radio in first. You have to get the glove box in first and then the radio. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to cut that there. Cut that there. Now the thing that I've got to deal with is I've got to figure out, it may not actually matter, but one of these is going to be the left and one of these is going to be the right, and I'm not really sure which one is which. But again, I don't know that it really matters that much. Alright, and I have my little cheat sheet here so I remember which ones are which. So left front is the green and green. Okay. Right. Okay, so I believe I have things kind of wired in correctly. What I want to do is test the radio real quick before I start zip tying things and finalizing stuff. I just want to plug it in and test it, make sure it works. Also, because I don't know which speakers, the sound bar, like which was left and right, I want to just kind of test that also. So let's see, that's got to be, I think that's my ground. So let me just make sure that's touching metal real quick. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Really? So this radio plug does not fit in the back of the radio. That sucks. All right, well, let's see if we get, do we have power? I got nothing. So the antenna that I worked so hard to put in doesn't plug into the back of the radio. It's too big. Don't know what that's all about. And I don't get power to the radio. So I guess the good news is that I've done what I can with the wiring back there, and I can put the glove box in and hopefully get a win. Because right now I'm not getting any wins. That stinks. I'm sure if people are yelling at their screens right now, you know exactly what I've messed up, and I don't. I don't know what I did wrong. So I'm going to go back to the drawing board, but I'm going to put the glove box in. Let's put the glove box in and get a win. So the glove box I decided to go with was the Smittybilt. It's a vaulted glove box. The reason I wanted to do that was because it would give me some lockable storage. I don't have the keys for the center console, and that's not overly strong anyway. So at least if I need to lock anything up, I always have access to this, which is going to give me a little bit of security just in case I've got some valuables I need to lock away. But that's what we're going to be installing. Well, I have to say the packaging didn't hold up great. All of the nuts and bolts and washers and stuff are all loose inside the box. So there was some just loose in the cardboard box. There were some loose in the glove box here. Not a huge deal, but it's just one of those things, like they should have been in a sealed bag. The installation of the glove box seems fairly straightforward, but the instructions are terrible. The photos on them are so... It's like it's one of those images that's been Xerox copied 1,000 times from a copy, from a copy, from a copy. And so they're kind of worthless instructions. But the idea is to get this bracket on here and then the other bracket here, put the glove box in, and then bolt it in from the sides. What's nice about that is I guess you can't just unscrew it from the back. It's also nice that it seems like it's going to actually be easier to get in and out in the future than the factory glove box was. But I have some fitment concerns that we'll get to in a second. There's never an easy angle for any of this stuff, is there? There just isn't. So these brackets are now on. They're a little loose. I'm leaving them hand tight because I feel like I need to test fit and make sure they're in the right spots before I tighten them down too much. That one's good. This one's got to come up a little bit, but that seems okay. So this, I'm not sure I understand. Like, it's flush against that, but it also seems like it should be tighter because it wants you to put some screws there, but it's not flush. You can see that there's plenty of room behind there. And, oh, there we go. If you push in real hard, you get it. Okay. Got it. Oh my gosh. I'm literally the worst at this. Also, I don't know if you can see it from here, the little end caps that are on these nuts keep breaking off. So they're trash, just so you know. Okay. Okay, actually, not so bad. Again, I'm going to leave these kind of loose for right now. All right, things look pretty good, so I'm going to try to push this in again. There we go. Nice and tight. So these don't feel like they're actually long enough, which is an interesting issue I had not expected. It's like once it got in, and I tightened this side, it kind of pulled it more to one side, and now these screws, or nut, whatever you want to call these, they're just barely grabbing. Yeah, they'll be fine. The metal's going to flex a little bit, I guess. So, that's good. Get that one. Not a lot of room with just a regular Allen key, though. So it's sort of slow going. Like, not even a whole half turn. It's like a quarter turn at a time. Okay. Sweet. All right. I think we have installed the glove box. All right, let's test out the lock. All right. Locked. Oh, that's interesting. I bet that's... They have padding here, but it's not quite enough. So the glove box includes some padding, which I imagine is probably to put back there so that it doesn't knock around so much. So let's see what happens if we just put this right there. It's still gonna rattle, it looks like. I wonder. They have small padding here. Maybe that was for... Let's take that off and replace it with some of this thicker padding. Okay. It's still... It wants to pull out and then pop in, so you're going to hear that rattle, it seems like. I wonder if there's... I wonder if I could do 2 layers. I just want enough pressure on it so that you got to push it in. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Now that's going to keep it from rattling. Now, I will say with this, what I didn't realize is you've got to keep it locked, because there's no way to close it without it being locked. So it's either locked or it's not, which means if you've got your keys on your key ring on your Jeep and you need to get in here, or like you got a passenger who wants to put like sunglasses in there or something, I don't know, maybe you just keep a key around or something. I don't know what the answer to that is necessarily, but that works. And so that's what we got. So That's sturdy. That's in there. Nice grab handle. So cool. All right, we got a win. That makes me happy. All right, let's see if we can at least get 2 out of 4 wins for this video. So I promised you we'd see what the citrus stripper did if that test worked. So it's been about 24 hours, so I'm going to uncover it, and we're going to evaluate it and see if this is actually a viable way of getting bed liner off of stuff. All right, so let's move that out of the way. Let's do that. All right, it's kind of a gunk. Oh yeah. All right, check this out. So I'm just pulling it away, and it has removed a whole bunch of stuff. I'm gonna get some paper towels to try to clean that up a little bit better. Yeah, so you can see it took it all the way down to bare metal. That's pretty impressive. All right, let's get a screwdriver and see if we can get those screws out. Yeah, baby. We are doing it. Of course, it doesn't want to come out the final little bit. That one wasn't even screwed into. Man, these people. All right, so these are metal tapping screws. All right, I guess what I'm looking at here is a partial win. The citrus stripper absolutely worked. It worked really, really well. However, I'm still not able to get these screws out because I think they're in there. I might hit this with some PB Blaster and let it sit for a while, see if that loosens it up or anything like that. But citrus stripper, that's a win. That'll take off bed liner. Okay, so after going through the diagram again and checking everything, I realized my issue was I had some cables in the wrong spot. I had my power cable in the wrong one. I'd flipped it looking at the diagram. So that should solve my problem. I do need to wire up my my ground though, so it doesn't keep coming disconnected. So I got to cut this to do that. I hate cutting this, but that's what we're doing. All right, so now we're gonna throw all this back. It's gonna look like a disaster for a minute until I get it all cleaned up, but just as a test, let's check it out. We have power. Let's see.
Thought here, which is it's okay to seek advice from an expert. There are organizations like mine. We have a call center, so even if you don't have access to the internet, give us a call. Ask us the question.
All right, so off camera, I spent some time looking at the diagram again, checking my wires, called up my brother, who is a freaking genius. But anyway, long story short is it was my fault. I had, and looking at the diagram, I put something in basically backwards or upside down. It was one of those things where it's just, you're looking at one thing flipped one way and trying to, anyway, it was my fault. So once we identified that I had a wire in the wrong spot, we flipped them and I turned it on and I got power. So then I went through and I hooked up all the wiring for the sound bar and tucked all the wiring in. The stereo works. The sound bar works. The speakers work. We have a glove box that's nice and sturdy. Everything is back I'm super excited about this. All right, guys, we ended this video with the wins. I'm super excited. Thank you so much for watching. For anyone who's asking, I did have to run and get an adapter for the antenna to go into the back of the radio, so I did that, did it off camera because, you know, it's an adapter. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, if you found it fun or helpful, or even if you didn't, hit the like button because it helps out the channel. If you're new here, we do a lot of overlanding and other Jeep stuff, and so if you're interested in that, hit subscribe so you can see more adventures. And don't forget your Simply Must Go and Save the Squares merch. Link down in the description for that. And until next time, God bless. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.